Hey, good evening. This is Charlotte Pierce. I'm the producer of Ready Row USA. We're in an 89th episode this evening, and I'm here with some of my favorite rowers, Patricia Destine, say hello to the people, and Denise Aquino. Is that correct pronunciation?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Rowing in Color, and I've been watching them for about a year. I believe you started your podcast about a year ago, right?
Yeah. It was the thought was definitely born well before that. But as most people know, starting something versus thinking of something are two different things. But just about a year ago we launched our trailer.
Yeah.
Your trailer.
Yeah, so we Patricia and I were talking about this idea for about a month, and then we finally said, all right, we need to find a quiet place to record our trailer that previews what the season's going to be about. That quiet place that we found that is affordable in New York City is a bar. So our trailer, if you hear in the background, you're going to hear a lot of music, a lot of clinking. Patricia's over 21, by the way, just in case. I'm over 21. Just in case people were confused.
But you're both living in New York, and did you both work at Row New York, or?
We did, yes. Okay. And I don't work there anymore, but at the time we did, and that's where we met. And Patricia, why don't you tell everyone exactly how we met? Because that's such an interesting story.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I was the rock or the stone that would break or make Denise's career. That's how I like to.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
So I was like, I call it. I was like the rock or the stone that would make or break Denise's career, start career. So I met Denise as a rower at Row New York. I believe I was about to enter my sophomore year or junior year of high school, and it was like the summer, and Denise comes into the boathouse and she's interviewing for her position at Row New York. But one of their interviewing processes is how she would interact with the athletes and at the boathouse at the time. And so I was one of the maybe like 4 or 5 kids in the boathouse that she was like interacting with, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. At the time, it was a really white boathouse, and so I was like, yeah, there's another minority here. Woohoo! It was one of those moments. And then down the road, Denise, she got hired and she was like coaching the middle schoolers, and then my senior year I started volunteering with the middle schoolers as like a mentor. And so I started working a lot closer with her. So we go back a long time, and now we have a podcast together.
And
amazing. And I just remember hearing about it, and I was like, when all that stuff was happening in April and May, and the George Floyd stuff, and it was just like, I thought this is a moment when rowing can seize the moment, and following you guys. And how many podcasts did you do that first year?
I think we ended up recording a lot more than we published. I think we published 48 or 47 episodes, and some of those were group episodes, so we had multiple recordings woven into that single published episode. But we published 47 or 48 episodes and recorded, I think, close to 60 last year. And we still are recording. We still are hoping to publish episodes through this year as well.
So do you take, I do live streaming, and then I almost can't stand to listen to my own voice, but
I know the feeling very well.
I'm about to embark on doing a little more audio processing and making it sound a little bit better for the audio podcast segment of the distribution. But so do you do a lot of work on each one?
Oh, yes. That's wow. Yeah. It takes a long time. I think on average, it takes me an hour to edit 20 minutes worth of raw content. And we say this to every single guest, and every single guest can attest to this. It's their story. We just want to amplify it. And if they don't feel comfortable with a certain part, if they want to re-record a part, we'll take that time and do it. It does take a lot of time. And my job as the editor is to make sure that you cannot tell the difference. You cannot tell when we just pulled off of the episode and had a laughing session about something that someone said, or, someone said a curse word when they didn't want to. My job is to make sure that you can't notice that at all, and that their story shines for what it is.
Yeah, that's cool. That's just great. And so tell me a little bit about the impact and I just kept hearing about this from lots of different sources, and you guys, and you just like your message resonated very authentically with me. And I thought it was a great time to have an organization like that. But can you tell me a little bit about some of the responses and some of the surprising things that happened this past year? And people like to talk to the future president or anything.
Well, it's so funny. I think we're laughing. Like Denise and I are laughing so much because we like text each other constantly. I'm just like, Denise, I can't believe it. Like
every single day.
So and so mentioned, yeah.
We're just shocked that people know who we are. When we talk about we have 5,000 people on Instagram, it's the shock that people are actually listening to what we're saying, not just what we're saying, but the stories of the people we're interviewing. So like we've got people who responded, who've emailed us or who've like DM'd us on Instagram. They're just like, you guys are like, you guys have given me hope in rowing. And I was just like, hope? Like I've been doing rowing for almost 6 years going, and I never thought that like I was giving anyone hope. I was just another rower. And so as Denise who's been doing it like a lot longer than I have. And so when someone's saying, sorry.
Go on. Keep going. Don't let me stop you.
When you have like someone who's in high school or in college, you're just like, this podcast has given me so much hope in the rowing, or has given me the courage to continue rowing when I didn't want to row. These are the impacts that we wanted to put out there, because I've had my moments when I was like, I don't feel like I'm accepted in rowing because of who I am over my background. And so when we amplify the voices of the people who are telling their stories, they're not just their stories. They're stories of multiple people who've gone through it, and we haven't heard those stories yet.
Yeah.
And so like we've had negative responses, but those are the ones that we're like, well, we'll brush it off. Like, that you're obviously the reason why we do this, because you're so stuck in this mindset, this small mindset, that you don't see how your belief or your ideas are affecting so many other people. Rowing is such a traditional sport, and sometimes tradition is not right. Sometimes, as much as we love and our ancestors have done it, they're not always the right traditions for us to continue following.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I particularly appreciated that session you did at U.S. Rowing Convention about microaggressions, and you have a little cheat sheet for it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I saw that on your website.
Our website. Oh no. No, don't go to the website. Please don't go to the website. It's
coming.
It's a work
but
in
it's
progress.
like people, I go to my rowing club. I don't encounter any problem. I mean, occasionally bitchy people, but I mean, not very often. But I can't. It was very illuminating to hear. And I think everybody's knows what microaggressions are. It's we all get them at some point. Just like that little nagging thing that you don't know whether just to explode about it or to let it go. And so I appreciate those tools that you're giving the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, we were very meticulous with crafting the mission of it's not even an organization. We're literally two young women. We're both young, Patricia. We're two young women who have a podcast, who have a platform, and most importantly, have the trust of people who share their stories with us. And it would only honor the integrity and the trust of those stories by sharing. All right, everyone wants to know how to recruit and how to retain people of color. Well, let us label and show, all right, these are the ways that people have been dissuaded from the sport. These are the ways that people have been discouraged from the sport. And this exists, and they're called microaggressions. And we have hundreds of hours of content that say this, but to label it and put it out there, it would only it would be a disservice if we did not showcase that and explain that, repurpose that, and curate that for everyone to see.
And my feeling is that, inclusion and diversity in the sport will make it so much more healthy. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's going to grow the sport. It's going to make it more interesting and fun for everyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, baseball was a white sport, basketball was a white sport, football was a white sport, and look at what diversity has done in those sports. And
do you feel like that's changing in rowing, or like?
Yeah.
That's good.
I think I would like. So I interviewed someone yesterday, and we talked about this, and I've also talked to I've DM'd a couple people on Instagram, and they brought it up, and I was like, 2021 was the eggshell cracked, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is something we need to talk about. Even though this is a topic that has been in this in the news for a while, I think 2020 to 2021, it's the biggest topic in rowing. And we have to keep it there, not because people just want to keep hearing about diversity, but because the fact that if we're looking at other sports and it's diversifying, it makes the sport better for them. Imagine what rowing in 2022 or down the line could look like when we are that more diversified. Imagine the boats that we could actually be putting out there when it's not just a small community of people, and now you have this big diverse pool of athletes that you can pick from. It's not just going to be the 6-foot kid from Connecticut. It's going to be it's going to be that kid from Harlem who used to play basketball and now he's a rower, and he's pulling he's putting those records out there.
Yeah, I know that in the A Most Beautiful Thing, the movie, they were talking about trying to peel those athletes of color from sports that they tend to drift into or gravitate to, because rowing is not necessarily inclusive, or hasn't been.
Right. And I mean, there's a reason that rowing, is so attractive. There's a reason why celebrities pay millions of dollars to sneak their kids into Ivy League schools via rowing programs, and so that opportunity, rowing is one of the elite sports that is basically affirmative action for the rich, affirmative action for the elite.
Oh,
and so of course folks would want to keep rowing exclusive, because it benefits that 1%, not even that 1%, that 0.5%. So why not share these benefits with folks who aren't the 1%? There's so many folks who have talent, who have skill, but just aren't given that opportunity. Rowing is such an accessible sport in all categories except financially. And I mean, well, there's transportation, but really it financially, we some of these barriers are man-made, and we really need to knock them down.
Yeah. And I as a master's rower, I think it's even less diverse, out of the college and high school. To be honest, I don't see very much diversity, when I go to regattas and stuff. Some, but the way I feel is I do cover some master or collegiate and youth rowing on the podcast, but I feel like those young rowers are future masters rowers, and that will benefit that end of the sport as well. So
absolutely. And we recorded a few interviews yesterday, and we can't wait to publish them. But one of the interviews that we had was with a masters rower in DC, and he started off learning as a masters rower. He didn't start off as a high school or a collegiate rower. But one thing that's interesting is that the needs of masters rowers are completely different from the needs of collegiate or high school or middle school rowers.
Yeah.
I mean, masters rowers and adults are looking for a community. And when the community culture is already so well defined in rowing,
Absolutely.
It's kind of hard to change that when it's already so well curated by that point. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that because the needs are different, so are the challenges.
Well, it'd be cool if you would do a piece on that. I mean, you said that you talked to somebody, but I would really like to hear about some tools that we can use as club members and influencing our clubs to deal with that aspect.
Oh yeah, there's so many challenges too on our next webinar.
We have a question from someone who did not sign up on Facebook, but they're anonymous, but they were going to check out your podcast. The stories mean so much to us.
Yay! Thank you.
We did not have POC peers in college. That's so great.
Yay! Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah. And for 2021, I mean, do you have any other projects that you're working on, like any other aspects of publishing? I mean, I do book publishing. That's kind of my main occupation. But like, what else you got going on? Consulting? Can you do a consulting for rowing clubs?
I mean, we've talked about it. We've talked about it. We have so many ideas.
Yeah.
And we have so many ideas. And I think what has worked for us so far is focusing on one thing at a time and doing it really well, then moving on to the next thing. And one thing that we're really focusing on right now, which is, I mean, I'm talking about it, but it was really Patricia's idea, was really training more co-hosts because this, I mean, diversifying the sport of rowing, this isn't the first time this has happened. From what I hear, this happens around every 10 or 15 years and then flops and then ebbs and flows and flops.
What, the push for diversity?
The push for diversity. I mean, I haven't been around that long to have seen it go from full circle, but from what I hear and doing the research and just reading about, what has failed in the past and what can we learn from that in this time, the one thing that I think makes the biggest difference, and I say this as a millennial, so I mean it, is Generation Z. I think Generation Z is going to change the face of rowing. I think they're going to turn the page so that way we're not.
20, is that as Generation Z?
I think so, because Generation Z is right under you, Patricia, right?
I like to think that. Like
you're like the elder statesman of this.
You're always trying to tell me Generation Z. I'm like a millennial.
Yeah, well, I could take a little of your advice, Denise. I tend to kind of like to do everything all at once, but and I also need a partner. So if anybody out there wants to be an intern on Ready Row USA, you're welcome to do that.
We should train some podcast editors together, because that's a good skill to have, and there's a job market for that.
And if you can, I mean, we're still kind of working on the cash flow, but but if you're not paying them, then they come and they work at it for a little while, and then they kind of, they get a real job. So paying helps, but it's like a chicken and the egg situation.
Yeah, it's like every entry-level job requires you to have 10 years of experience.
Right. Well, before we wrap up, what, like hopes and dreams for the future? I'd also like to get a few of your favorite rowing coaching tips and gadgets that you like, because we do a gadgets and gears section. So, first of all, we talked a little bit about, you want to do one thing at a time, but kind of in the big picture, can you tell us a little bit about, your specific plans for this coming year or two?
Yeah. So I think Denise, we've talked about it, and we definitely want to put gear out, a little bit more gear. Like, a lot of people have received some of the gear and they're just like, I love this. And so we want to somehow find something that's consistent with gear. We want to keep building our, so we've been helping support a lot of the youth-based communities that are being built. So we have like a young Black community that's being built, and it's with high schoolers. There's a collegiate one. We just started helping with a Asian affiliated one, and then there's one in Seattle that's being built, which is like it's great. So we're supporting with that, and so kind of like helping them build off and to do the diversity work on at their level, like at high school level, collegiate level. So we want to keep doing that. We want to obviously keep having like new people tell their stories, and so we want to amplify those stories on our podcast. There's so much, but like our goal is to one day just turn this into an organization where we're like putting it out there, and it's not like, okay, well, it's just Denise and I. It's a huge team of people, especially the young Gen Zs and whatever we call the younger ones after that.
I think they're Zoomers now.
I'm told I'm a baby boomer, but I don't know if I believe that or not.
Who knows?
Who knows? I know that rowing keeps me like, I feel so much better than I did, a few years before I started rowing.
It's important. It's for everyone.
Yeah. So coaching tips, Patricia, do you have any? I know you both coach, but
I mean, coaching in COVID, you just got to be positive, always be positive, and listen to I think the biggest advice I would ever give a coach is listen to your athletes. They know what's best for them and for their team. And you are, even though you are the coach or you're like in charge, it's their team, it's their space. So listen to what they have to say. Will give you an easier job at coaching them because they know what's best for them.
And do you feel like they're rising to the occasion in COVID and really being honest about their training and taking it seriously? Yeah, great.
I think even the youngest athletes they're so much more aware of what they're lacking and what they need, because they know, a lot of them know what it feels like to be in a space where this is the norm and this is not the norm for them at the moment. So they know where they're lacking, and they're going to ask you, or they're going to say, hey, this is what I'm missing out. And it's your job to then be like, okay, I'm going to help you now solve that space.
Well, they're lucky to have you. That's, I think you mentioned that at the U.S. Rowing Convention too. They listen to your athletes and they'll, or just be observant, because if there's an issue, especially with microaggressions or something like that, you have to be observant. But any thing to add to that, Denise?
I'm just so proud to hear Patricia say that. I'm just so proud to hear her say that.
Yeah.
We've come a long way from you judging me for getting a job. Thank you. Because then I became her supervisor. But ever since starting this podcast, Patricia has been my supervisor. Like, Patricia is the CEO of our podcast here. So I'm just so proud to be following her leadership here. She keeps.
I don't know why I think most of like talking to you, Denise, and I think maybe I should have been dealing with Patricia.
I mean, don't tell my boss that.
Then I wanted to touch a little bit about on your new position in inclusion program manager. Can I?
Yeah. So I'm so happy to work with the George Pocock Rowing Foundation. I have many years of experience working in rowing nonprofits, and I think anyone who knows me, anyone who's worked with me, knows that I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to do, because I was always that person saying, "Oh yeah, like we should have a cultural competency group. Let's have, multilingual mingle. Let's have Spanish table. Let's make sure that all our coaches can speak Spanish, or can coach learn to row in Spanish." And now I'm able to dedicate 40 plus hours of my work week just on the things that I always love doing in my spare time. And
so that's a full-time job.
And I get to work closely with Arshay Cooper. I get to work closely with the Most Beautiful Thing Inclusion Fund, and on top of the great work that the George Pocock Rowing Foundation does with ErgEd, Road to the Future, everything that they have going on there. So I'm happy to make an impact there. It really fills my cup to do the work full time and as a hobby.
It's inclusion, not just, but it's also sort of like ability and all aspects of inclusion, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I had Michelle Sosa on a few months ago, the hydro athlete, and she had become an ambassador for this, head of the Charles Gold Cup fun.
Yeah,
And I think
I'm
saw
on that
something
with her.
you were involved with that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can't keep my hands to myself, so I'm involved with I'm involved with the Head of the Charles Cup Gold Cup Fund, and we have our webinar, our roundtable tomorrow. Just another normal webinar featuring all Black coaches and rowers in American rowing. So this needs to be a normal thing, and I'm happy to be a part of a committee that normalizes that.
Yeah, well, I signed up for it, so I'm going to be a fly on the wall. And I just like learning all I can, about, and I like doing as much as I can as a producer of this podcast to amplify what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it.
All good. It's all good. Anything else to add? Gadgets and gear.
Gadgets and gear. I mean, I'm a fan of recording everything, obviously.
Oh, so like GoPros and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when Patricia and I work with middle schoolers, I don't think we went crazy with the GoPros just because the kids were like, yeah, let's throw it in the water and watch it float. I'm like, let's not, please. No. It's gonna float away.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're both former coxswains, and I think even just hearing your own voice, although it is awkward, although I still hate hearing my own voice, I would be lying if I didn't say there's a small part of me that wasn't empowered by just hearing, oh, I said that, or that's my voice.
Well, you can listen to this one because you've said a lot of great things. I really appreciate both of you, and let's work together, on getting some stuff out there and the good stuff out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome so much. And I'll just do the kind of outro here, and then if you want to stick around, we'll just say goodbye. This is our 89th episode. I'm Charlotte Pierce, the producer of Ready Row USA, and my other life is publishing books, including children's books. This is a book we just won an award for, and it's a book about diversity and famous authors, and it's really got a really great message, and I'm so happy for the author that we won an award. But again, the Gold Cup, that's another thing I like to. What is it called? The Head of the Charles Gold and
it's a mouthful. Head of the Charles Regatta Gold Cup Fund.
Fund. Yeah. Okay. My website is piercepress.com. You can find all our podcast archives there and the other podcasts I do on publishing and alternative education. One of our favorite guests and someone I talked to, I felt like I'd known him forever, is Richard Butler, and he's got a new program, Anti-Racism Conversation. He's also DEI co-chair for U.S. Rowing. You probably know him, you all. And in all of our show notes, you'll find our club news form. So please send in news about your rowing club. No rowing club is too small or too large, and no bit of news is insignificant. We just like to kind of be a little fly on the wall at your rowing club, and we occasionally do about 4 times a year a rowing club spotlight. So if you'd like to come on and talk about your club, send us entry in that form, and we'll be in touch. Gadgets and gear, like I said, I'm a gadget freak, so that's my thing. And again, Patricia Destine and Denise Aquino are our special guests for episode 89 of the Ready Row USA. And you have been so helpful and, such great information. I want to have you back. And let's just work together.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay. All right. Take care.